presented by Dano Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the latest episode of the Sun Belt Syndicate, with you from the first kick to the last pitch, and getting going on this basketball coverage, Marv. I got a bunch of articles to finish up on that to preview each Sun Belt team after we get done with this.
I don't envy you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of work, but we're going to let you guys know where your team will sit coming into the season and maybe what to expect out of them. That's really hard to predict. I will go ahead and give you that little tidbit of information. Marv, you know that. I mean, rosters are like one thing in football when you've got 40-plus players but 100 on a roster. But when you have 5 guys who routinely play on the floor and you only have a roster of 14, 15, 16 guys,
yeah,
there's rosters that have like 2 guys left over from last season that are going to be on the court this year. So it's going to be insane to predict. But before we get rolling along too far, collegefootballdogs.com, we will have Sam Stubbs on here in a little bit to preview to wrap up South Alabama versus A-State, as he went there in Jonesboro to cover that one for College Football Dogs. So shout out to those guys for allowing him to come on and for him making the time. And also thank you to Dubby Energy, Fanplex Graphics, TSN Off Road, and Dano Seasoning. Special shout out to TSN and their sister companies as they loaded up 3 trucks for Western North Carolina that they took to an airstrip yesterday. I guess it was yesterday now. And getting some more stuff up the mountain. So not just Boone, obviously. You got Asheville, Chimney Rock, all those smaller areas that were also hit really, really hard. Let's get to some comments here. So FSU got hosed. I think they just keep getting hosed, I think, right?
They can't catch a break this season. That's man, you don't want to talk about coming in with expectations and having them shattered very quickly.
Yes.
And it seems like it just, like, once again, it just continues to get worse.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Artie Cat, as always. Hello, Dominic and Marvin. We'll be listening while camping on the beach at South Padre Island.
Good for you.
That sounds awesome.
Yes, it does. Well, have a very cold beverage and get some information overload. Yeah,
there you go. And just kick those feet back and relax as we saw Texas State get back to their winning ways. So, well, first of all, Marv, before we get too far along, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Nice, relaxing weekend. Got to watch a lot of football. We didn't have baseball this weekend, so it felt like college football season for like the first time this year, to be completely honest.
I feel like it had around me, and we're not that far apart as far as mileage goes, but time-wise is a little different story. But I felt like it really had that cool Christmas at night for the first time. I feel like it's been like humid most nights still.
Yeah, it has been. But as we get further into October, it's going to feel like football season for our team. I wish it felt more like football season, but it was nice to, only conference games. It wasn't like anyone was going against a, overpowering P4 team. It was like, hey, these are all ring games and they all matter, and let's see what everybody's got. So it was a great weekend.
Yeah, no, that definitely, it made it easier on us too. Like you said, we could take in a lot more games. I mean, when there's 14 or 10 games on a schedule, it's like, man, I can't jump to 4 or 5 different games on at one time. It's just not possible, right? Although, the back end was loaded heavy last night. We had 4 games on at 7:00 Eastern.
Yeah. But I was telling you, it was great because I got my wife went to a concert last night, so it was just me and the kids. So I got them to bed, and it was like, the games were a little staggered. So it was like, you'd finish watching that one and move on to the next one, and got to see a lot of really good finishes in the Sun Belt last night.
Yeah, there definitely were that. Let's get right into that as we go through week 6 here. Obviously, this was the graphic, and it's now been updated with the X's over the losers on the week, and only 6 matchups because the Georgia teams were off, but everybody else pretty much went. And we know that Texas State and Troy got us started on Thursday night, 38-17. Texas State really didn't leave any doubt in this one, right, Marv?
No, I mean, it was a little close there. In the second quarter, Troy tried to make a game of it. They got to 14-7, and then it just kind of got out of hand. Kind of what I expected. You and Seth and I were texting. I took Texas State laying 14, just felt good about it for whatever reason, which was kind of strange because I feel like Texas State has kind of been not really up and down, but just they look really good, and then they kind of came back down to reality. But kind of what I expected to happen in this game. I thought maybe Troy could have made it a little bit closer, but yeah, Texas State just too much from beginning to end.
Yeah, and I think the thing that hurt Troy the most was Goose being out, Goose Crowder, the starter quarterback. Yeah. I don't know if I'd have said that he would have made a difference to like win the game in Troy's favor. Obviously, 38 points put up by Texas State offensively is going to be hard to overcome for a Troy team that's struggled to score a lot of points yet this year.
Yeah.
But Ross didn't have a typical Ross game, obviously pictured here. He went for, what was it?
We have two catches,
26 yards. He did have a touchdown.
Yeah.
So he wasn't kept out of the end zone, but just not your stereotypical game for him. And even on
you don't have your starting quarterback in the guy that you've worked with all off season, all fall camp, and you have that timing and chemistry down with him. It makes sense. Yeah, but the backup they brought in, Tucker Kilcrease. Didn't play terrible. 17 for 28 for 249 and 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw a pick. He did lose a fumble, but not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, so much can only be expected, right? When you're probably thrust into that role a little, possibly late. I mean, sometimes we don't know exactly when the switch occurred, but it seemed like even the guys calling the game were questioning whether Goose would go kind of up until the last minute. Shout out to Dominic and Sarah for joining in, saying what's up. Thanks for joining into the show, guys. And yeah, I mean, I don't know much more to say about that one. I mean, Jordan McLeod throws 2 interceptions, but if you watch the game, I mean, that last one he didn't even really need to be throwing the ball at that point in time of the game. So, I don't know. Otherwise, a pretty clean game, 252, 3 touchdowns there again, 2 interceptions.
And he also ran for 72 and a touchdown as well. Yeah. 2 picks never looks good, but other than that, I mean, I think it was 20 for 29. He was pretty efficient.
Yes.
If we count interceptions, he's 22 for 29. But I mean, that Texas State offense, we all thought that they could be PlayStation quality. Like, what kind of numbers can you put up? And right now they're kind of confirming that they're a pretty good offense. We always worried about the defense. Obviously, Troy not having a starter, is it maybe a little false on how good the defense looked? But once again, in the West, even though there are some emerging teams in the West, I still think Texas State's the favorite to represent the West in the conference championship game, in my opinion, at the moment.
No, yeah, I can see that. I could see Louisiana creeping up there. We'll get to ULM.
Hey, ULM.
But yeah, interesting note. I mean, you got Texas State there sitting at 1-0 in the conference now, and Troy sits at 0-2 now. Yeah. I think a lot of people knew Troy wasn't going to be as good because they did lose quite a bit. Plus the coaching change. We've covered that many times, so it's not totally shocking. It's just I don't know if I'd have predicted 0-2 to start the year, even as much as they lost, right? Yeah. But speaking of a team that didn't lose a lot, that did have high expectations coming into the season, obviously the off the field issues were a big thing in this one. But App State travels up to Huntington, West Virginia, and gets beat rather easily, at least towards the end there, 52-37 against Marshall. Did anything shock you in this one, I guess?
So, I've got my App State glasses on, right? Another slow start, playing from behind. It seemed like every time we got the gap down where we needed a big defensive stop, we could just never get the defensive stop. The thing that really jumps off the page to me and where I feel like we shot ourselves in the foot was penalties. 15 penalties for 158 yards. The 2 picks, one of them was a pick 6 that bounced off the running back's hands where sometimes you wish picks could go to the receivers instead of quarterbacks, but just never enough. Like I said, every time I thought that we could close the gap, Marshall would run a quarterback draw and get a first down on a 3rd and 7, and there was just really nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, Sarah joining in. Sarah's from North Carolina. I was pulling so hard for App State this week. I think, unfortunately for Marshall fans, a lot of people nationally were pulling for App State to pull this one out just because, everything off the field wise. On the you spoke really well about the App State side, right? It's just it kind of continues from what we've seen. There wasn't anything like worse. There wasn't really anything better. They've just kind of continued to play the game that they've been playing, which is occasionally they'll kind of get something done, but you just don't feel like they're really going to take over the game and just start producing, unfortunately. On the Marshall side, I think a lot of people were surprised that Braylon Braxton was the guy going into this one. Even the guys calling the game, they even said that Stone Earl was coming out to take the first snap. And I was like, well, Stone Earl is definitely not number 11. That would be Braylon Braxton. So that's definitely not who that is. But they quickly saw, right after the first play, maybe even right before the first play, that it was Braxton, who does provide a little bit different sort of skill set. Is a little bit more mobile and a runner. And I don't know if you agree with me, Marv, but I feel like every time App State defensively goes up against a mobile quarterback, it spells trouble. Not just this season, like historically. Yeah. They usually do fairly well. One reason why App State has always struggled with, the old school Georgia Southern rushing attack, right? Because those quarterbacks were essentially running backs.
Yes.
But I don't even think, well, no, he was. Listen to that. 140 for 2 touchdowns on the ground for Braxton.
Yeah.
He ran for more than
he threw for, even though he was super efficient throwing. Only completed 8 passes, but 3 of them were touchdowns. It just, once again, it just seemed like every time we had an opportunity, he just, found a wide open guy, or just that quarterback draw. We just couldn't stop him. He's a big kid, or at least he looks like a big kid on TV. But just a little bit too much. It's taking nothing away from Marshall. They played really well. They found our weaknesses and they exploited them frequently. But the App State teams of the past, where you kind of jump on someone, we always used to message each other in the second half of a game when we're in control and like, oh my God, we're in cruise control. We took our foot off the gas. Now it's just like, man, I'd love to see the gas occasionally. But one thing I will say about App is they fought hard till the end. They've done that a couple times this season, but maybe it's getting easy to say that when you're always down. It always looks like you're fighting back. But just frustrating as an App fan. But congrats to Marshall. They beat us pretty good.
Yeah, no, they left no doubt. That was for sure. Had a pretty good home crowd there for that one, and obviously. The Thundercast guys who we had on the podcast, I've had quite a few interactions with over the past couple of years, really, as we've gotten rolling with this, are awesome guys. And they invited a lot of App people to stop by their tailgate because they always do free food and they go live from their tailgate for those that haven't checked that out. And so hopefully a lot of fans that did make the trip made their way over. It looked like the contingent was pretty small, and that's probably to be expected with everything kind of going on. But there was some App fans up there, so hopefully they got to go by and kind of check that out. Tyler Austin coming back from last week saying, good evening, fellas. Welcome back. Well, welcome back to you as well, Tyler. Yeah. Sarah is asking, what is the plan for App State home games this year since there's so much damage? Will they have to play away? There is no concrete answer on that as of yet. The stadium did not succumb to any real damage. So that is very usable for practicing and getting out there on the field. However, it's kind of the town of Boone that is the bigger aspect because they're not all back up and running yet. Seth, who's right here, saying, what's up? He says, is it basketball season yet? We're getting there. We are getting there, Seth. But back to Sarah's question, it's a lot of hotels and places to stay are taken up by volunteers and linemen in the area. We've seen these updates from David Jackson, who works up there at the county commissioner, Chamber of Commerce.
That's Chamber of Commerce, yeah.
And he's given us updates on that type of thing. So, it would probably be a pretty big slap in the face to a lot of those people saying, hey, we need you out because we got people coming for a football game. Yeah. So
I don't think Boone right now is prepared to host the influx of people that are coming in for a home football game. Those, like you said, hotel rooms and the food and water and all that stuff is probably better delegated in other places at the moment. We've heard rumors, nothing concrete. Obviously, we've got another week before we have to make a decision like that. But I don't think right now that Boone is ready to host a football game.
I don't either because of those. I think, you can actually get in and out of Boone fairly easily compared to a lot of other places that were hit hard. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's far from, but the structure of the major highways to get in and out of Boone are okay, right? But again, like you said, Marv, like it's just with the optics of all those locals who you're telling like take a back seat while we let all these people come in and have their fun and then leave.
Yeah.
And that's simplifying it, right? Not everyone, people do want to come and spend their money locally to help those businesses, but you can't control what does and doesn't happen in that regard. And just to fail, but also Boone is like a massive city compared to what ones got hit harder. So there are people staying in Boone that are probably traveling upwards of an hour to other places. So they might not be working right in Boone, but they are staying in Boone because it's the easiest and biggest place to stay with a lot of food options and whatnot.
I think the biggest issue too is that typically away teams stay in Banner Elk, and getting from Banner Elk to Boone right now is the road's open, but they had a lot of washouts. Banner Elk got hit pretty hard too. Yeah. It's going to cause nightmares either way. I'd be very interested to see what we decide to do. Like I said, we've heard a rumor of them being played down the mountain, but until it's official, don't want to say anything. But once again, I do not think Boone is prepared to host that. There's just too much going on, and there's a lot of other things resources that will be used for home football games should be used for right now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that for the people that are watching or listening that haven't seen the rumor, there has been apparently invitations from Wake and Charlotte to both host games, possibly at those institutions. Wake makes probably a little bit more sense, being a little closer to Boone and kind of the closer size-wise to the stadium that App usually plays in, where Charlotte would be a little further away and a smaller stadium. But there's a massive alumni base down there. So I could honestly see, the next two games being split just to kind of say, hey, we're going to try and appease people in both markets kind of thing. If that even happens, we'll see what they decide. And Tyler's saying his understanding is that the Sun Belt is supposed to meet with App officials this week. Yeah, I mean, the overhead that would be involved to get season tickets and their normal type of section and somebody else's away stadium, how you hire all the people for that venue, it's a logistical nightmare that people probably don't want to have to do, but it may be the real possibility there. So I know we're getting off of the football subject, but it does have to do with the remaining schedule for App State. So Boone's still in rough shape. Yeah, and I think the outskirts of Boone are really the ones that's hit hardest. But as we know, the students have had classes pushed back again even further. So we'll have to see what happens there. It'll be interesting to see how that develops, and we'll see what happens with App's remaining schedule as well.
Our buddy Seth still does not have power. That lets you know how things are going in Boone right now, on the outskirts of Boone.
Right. It's technically in Fosco, but not far. I had a buddy whose camper is a total loss. I was on a campground in Boone where there's a low-lying level on the way to Fosco, on the way to Seth's area. Okay. It's not the greatest of situations, unfortunately. And we know it's going to be a slow rebuild to get back. Okay. Let's move on finally to the next game on the docket here. We had ODU going up against Coastal Carolina. Coastal taking this one in what was way more of a score fest than I would have assumed. 45-37, man.
Yeah, that was I said, I think either last week or the week before, ODU's got a way of like having really ugly, low scoring games. They hadn't had success in pulling many of those out, but it's typically like a 21-14 or 17-10, but not this one. Points galore. Yeah.
No doubt about it. In fact, the game that's going to come up that Sam's coming on to talk about, I would have assumed that score, this 45-37 scoreline, would have been more appropriate for those two teams.
I agree.
Than this one. I mean, ODU's defense has been their strong point. So for them to allow Coastal to score 45 in this one was pretty shocking to me. The fact that ODU put up 37 was also surprised. I mean, just kind of surprised all the way around. I did not see this score line coming at all. So you said you got to see kind of the end of this one. What did anything that was like real close in the end of this one?
So, I mean, no, ODU made it close. I think when I turned it on, it was 35-17, and then ODU scores a touchdown. Then ODU scores a touchdown and misses the 2-point conversion. Then Coastal scores again, and ODU got a trash touchdown a little bit late. But I literally switched it on thinking it was going to be a runaway, and ODU made a game out of it towards the end. I was a little close in the first half, but Coastal was just too much. I think the quarterback threw for like 360 or something like that. And
Vasco went 367, 3 touchdowns. Although Colton Joseph kind of seems like he may be the guy going forward. Now, obviously not pictured here. That's Wilson, the starter for this season, because I wasn't sure who was going to be the starter going into this one because we saw both last week. I wouldn't have shocked me to see both again this week. But, Joseph goes for 262, 3 touchdowns, just 1 interception, and also a little dangerous on his feet, 68 yards, 1 touchdown there. So I think he's the guy. He's young. He's going to have some bumps along the way, but I think he's the guy going forward for ODU and a big reason for this 37-point output. So,
yeah, I mean, I think if you're 1-4 and you've got what you think is the future sitting there, you go ahead and let him take his lumps now so that next season looks a little bit brighter. But, ODU turned the ball over 3 times. Coastal still had 15 penalties for 145 yards. They were able to overcome that. But, I don't know, just not enough. Like you said, you thought the defense would keep it a little bit closer. But 1-4 start, not where I didn't expect them to be there. I didn't think they'd be 4-1, but I thought they'd at least be 3-2 or 2-3.
Well, not only that, but you got that first game against South Carolina that went so close, and then you see what South Carolina does the week after that, and you're like, wow, ODU could be great. And 1-4. They did get that win, surprisingly to me anyway, over Bowling Green last week, so that was a good one. TJ saying, from what I can tell, Coastal has a powerful offense, but has really given defense and allowed points that they shouldn't, which, I mean, if ODU is stepped up, that makes a little bit more sense with that 37. And if ODU's not been that great, then Coastal's defense is allowing more than they should. It's a good point. You don't really know. It's still not deep enough in the season, especially in the conference aspect, to really know some of those things just yet. Has Coastal beat anyone to note? Not familiar with their non-conference schedule this year. I guess I could Google it.
I've got it pulled up right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Jacksonville State, William & Mary, Temple, and Old Dominion. Those are their 4 wins. None of those teams are, juggernauts by any stretch of the imagination, but you play who's on the schedule, and they've done a pretty good job of knocking them down. So they got JMU coming up this weekend. So I think it's going to be a really good test to find out how good Coastal is, because JMU coming off that loss is probably going to be pretty pissed off.
Yeah, I think they may. And that's a
Thursday night game too, so we don't have to wait that long to see it.
No, we do not. A sellout too, actually. So be on the lookout for that one. That stadium should be pretty packed. Although, against the loss of ULM, who knows if people turn their backs on this program. Hopefully not that fast, but
for a showcase on national television on Thursday night, I think the Dukies will. I think they'll show up in force, and the stadium will look fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to our special guest of the evening. He went and attended the Arkansas State versus South Alabama game. Please welcome to the show, Sam Stubbs. You want me to say Samuel or Sam Stubbs?
Either one, but Sam's shorter, so people usually just end up saying that regardless.
Gotcha. I like it. That's cool with me because, the quicker and faster, the easier, especially when you're tripping all over your words all the time like I do. But I don't know if you were tuning in a little bit before. We had that massive output in this game before this one, which if the scores were flipped, it wouldn't have shocked me at all. You've got a powerful offense on both sides really here, but the score here is 16-18 with A-State taking it. What was it like being in Jonesboro? And tell us a little bit about this game.
It was the crowd was a little nervous there, especially once you got into the fourth quarter. And I'll be honest, I was slightly disappointed in the lack of fans, especially in Jonesboro. I know they're not world beaters. I know a 2-2 Sunbelt team doesn't make 50 million people want to come out there, but it was only like 60% full. And I know Jonesboro fans are really passionate. I know they can pack that place. So that was a little odd to not see great attendance there. But I got my stat sheet right in front of me, so I'm going to sound a lot shorter than I actually am, because I'll be honest, after the Arkansas win last night, I don't remember too much. I was up till about 1:30 writing off this game and writing off Arkansas stuff, so it's been a long 24 hours.
But just covering the whole state of Arkansas, aren't you?
Exactly, the whole thing. But this was a really fun game. It was a defensive slugfest, like you mentioned. I don't think we expected this. South Alabama scored, 87 against that high school from Northwestern or whoever it was. They put up 87 points on. They put up 48 on Appalachian State. And then you have Arkansas State, who usually has a pretty good offense. They got a really good quarterback. I really like Jalen Rayner. And I'm sure we'll talk about him here in a second. But the crowd was nervous. You could tell, like, after the first quarter. Let's see, did they score in the first quarter? Okay, they did. They scored at the very end of the first quarter. They had a field goal. It was 3-0. And the crowd was kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? And then it was 6-3 at halftime. And it was like, okay, we scored 6 points. And then it was 9-3. And they just could not punch it in the end zone. They had a drop touchdown pass, I think, that would have made it 13-3, a rare drop by Corey Rucker, who's just one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen. I mean, at any level of football, that guy is impressive. And it was 9-3, and you're thinking, okay, at some point, South Alabama is going to get something because they had a missed wide open touchdown pass. And I really like their quarterback, Gio Lopez. He's a really good quarterback, and he just missed that one. He underthrew him by about 5 yards. They missed a score. And it was almost, I'll allude to Arkansas, Tennessee. It was almost like when Arkansas was up 3-0, and you're like, okay, Tennessee is going to do something at some point. That's what happened with South Alabama. They hit a wide open 75-yarder to Jamal Pritchett, and all of a sudden it's 10-9, and everybody in the press box, everybody in the crowds, again, okay, offense, we only need 3 to win, but you haven't shown that you can consistently score. There was a veteran reporter there for Arkansas State that I was sat right beside, and his catchphrase of the night was, "We love 2nd and 10," because it seemed like every single series there would be either an outside zone or an inside zone to the right side, and the right side Arkansas State's line was getting blasted off the ball all night, and they would either lose yardage or not gain anything. And that's the theme of the offense. Every once in a while, here's a bomb to Corey Rucker. Here's a nice play made by a tight end or running back in space. But the offense, both offenses, but really Arkansas State's was just stuck in third gear. Couldn't get going. And then finally, they score a touchdown. And thinking, okay, it's ball game, 15-10. South Alabama, to their credit, put together a great drive. It's 3rd and 25 from the 26-yard line. And then in what is a play that I feel like I would have seen as an Arkansas fan. I feel like I would have seen Arkansas's defense give it up. There's a 3rd and 25, a dead duck of a football that even I could have thrown, and it's somehow caught by Jamal Pritchett, I think, again in the end zone. They missed the 2-point conversion, but they're winning. And all the air got sucked out of that stadium, like all of it, all the energy. It was dead as a doorknob or doornet, whatever the expression is, in Jonesboro. And I asked Coach Jones in the press conference, like, did you expect the offense to go down there and score? And he was like, oh, yeah, the whole time. I don't know about that, Coach. I'm not sure. I'm sure that's what he's saying to the press. I don't know if he really felt that way, but it was an impressive response. They go down. Their kicker, who has an incredible name, Clune Van Andel, nails a 34-yarder. He banked one in off the right upright from 20 yards in the first quarter. Had a really funny game, and they end up winning. But it was nerve-wracking to be there. And I wasn't cheering for anybody. Like, I was neutral. But it was a weird game, and you could feel how nervous everybody was because it felt like going into this game, everybody was talking about how Arkansas State was favored. They should win by 10 to 14 points. At least that's what I heard around the state, and that's what I thought. I thought maybe South Alabama keeps it close, but they're reeling a little bit. And this is going to be a game where Arkansas State wins relatively comfortably. That did not happen. And, they pulled it out. But I don't really know what to think. This doesn't change my opinion too much on Arkansas State. I think they're still a really good team. I just think, I don't know what happened against Iowa State. I think part of that's just Iowa State's really good. But it was a good win, a nervous win, but a win nonetheless. And that's all that matters, is that it goes in the left-hand column at the end of the day. Right. So.
Cal's agreeing with you, Sen. It had been like that from an offensive standpoint for the last 5+ years at Arkansas State. Inside dive on first down every time. It must be a
we know that feeling, right, Dom?
Yeah, I kind of familiar with that. With some coaching staffs that we've seen. But you're right, Sam. Like, you look at the record here, 3-2. You're like, oh, that's not impressive. Those 2 losses are two ranked teams. Yeah. So, I mean, you take your typical Sun Belt schedule, it's not going to be as powerful as those 2 teams. You might play somebody who's close to that level, but, let's be fair and honest that a lot of the teams aren't in and out every week going to be at that caliber. I I was a little worried because Rayner wasn't putting up kind of the stat lines in those games still, that I was like, there's something off in his game maybe or something. And like you said here, I mean, he throws the ball to Coy Rucker, who goes for 172.
Yeah.
But
he had half of the receiving yards last night by himself on 8 catches. Yeah. It just the guy's a football player. I mean, it's incredible.
And Pritchett on the other side, like you said, that guy is electric. He is tiny. I stood next to him at Sunbelt Media Days, and I'm like, this guy's a wide receiver, which I guess makes sense, right? Because what else? He wasn't going to be a running back or a quarterback. Yeah. But he is lightning fast, and that's obviously what helps with his size to be so darn good. Some of these guys in this conference, I mean, if you see them, it's just incredible that they ended up at some of these schools, because I'm like, how are these teams missing on some of these players? And we're seeing that now with the transfer portal, where they make up for it by paying them some money to come to these bigger schools. And I'm not saying I want to see that happen. I don't, but it's just the fact of the matter. These guys are going to be looked at for those types of things. I was surprised that the A-State was favored coming in with what had happened. I thought South Alabama, maybe not by a lot, but like 3 points, 2.5 points, something where like, okay, I think South Alabama could win. But yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate to hear that the fan turnout wasn't great, because we've been hoping that gets better around the Sun Belt in general. And I know that I saw a lot of that this weekend in places that people were all a little disappointed. I think Marshall had a pretty good turnout overall. I think there was like 2 or 3 sections that may be a little questionable, but the rest was pretty packed out. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they can get back in there. Are you planning to go to Jonesboro again this season, possibly?
Yeah, I'll be there for the ULM game on November 23rd. And I will say this, like, I don't want to rag on A-State's fans entirely, because the people that were there, they were loud. Like, I've been to a few Razorback games, and that's a pretty loud crowd for 21,000 people. Probably 2,000 or 3,000 of those were from South Alabama. The visitor side was pretty bare, pretty empty. And also I noticed Arkansas State's student section is on the visiting side. I've never seen that at a school before. That was kind of odd to me. But yeah, the crowd, the ones that were there were really great. I just wish, I mean, that's a really nice facility. It's a beautiful facility in a beautiful part of the country, beautiful part of the state. And I think for a team that, 3-2 on paper doesn't look fantastic, but for a team that just passes the eye test, I'd love to see more people show up and show out. And Butch Jones, I have a few friends that are Tennessee fans, and when you bring up the name Butch Jones, they have an aneurysm and you got to take them to the hospital. They can't stand hearing that name. But I will say I've never heard. Now he's the first press conference I've sat in on, but I've watched so many press conferences. I had to watch Chad Morris press conferences when he was at the University of Arkansas, and I have heard for a man that's coached Power 5 football, that's coached in the SEC, I have seldom heard a coach that is that passionate about coaching at a Sun Belt school. And I know anywhere you go, a coach is going to be passionate, right? They're all going to have that. That's an innate trait that they have. But I've never heard a man come out in his opening statement and look and sound that proud of a football team before. Like, it's incredible. And I watched his press conferences before this game to kind of prepare and see what he's like. He answers questions, but he is so proud of his football team, and that's really, really fun to see. For a coach, again, like I don't want to say he's failed. That sounds harsh. I guess he's technically failed at the highest level because he was let go at Tennessee. But going from Tennessee to Jonesboro is a bit of an adjustment. It's a bit of a downgrade, I guess most would call it. But I don't think it is to him. I think he's happy where he's at, and I think he loves these kids, and they love him. I mean, they play their hearts out for him each and every week, and that's really, really fun to see, because I've been a fan of teams when the coaches don't coach their hearts out for the players and vice versa, and I've seen how that can go terribly wrong. And no matter how, I don't think the on-field product with him is ever going to be that bad. They're never going to have that under him. I just don't think he's ever going to let things get that bad in Jonesboro. But even if that does happen, these players are going to fight for him, because he's just a guy. He walks into the place where we're doing the press conference last night, and like everybody just smiles and goes up and shakes his hand. Like he's loved by the media there. He's a fun guy to be around. So yeah, sorry for going on a Butch Jones tangent there, but Coach, it was great talking to you. And I mean, he's a really fun guy. He answers questions more sincerely than any other professional. Like I apologize to any NASCAR drivers watching this. Some of them I've asked them questions and they don't blow you off, but they're just kind of like insincere for 15 seconds and then they plug a sponsor and they walk away. It's kind of like, well, nothing worthwhile there. Every word that Butch Jones says in a press conference, it feels like it has some hidden meaning or something that you can extract out of it. So I don't know if he's just really well media trained or what, but just a great guy to talk to. So sorry for rambling on, but.
Oh, no, that's all good. Those are the insights that we like to do. I got one when I was at Sunbelt Media Days where he went off and talked about, after getting shellacked in the first game of the year last year against, I think it was, if I remember correctly, like Oklahoma. They got like 77 nothing or something. Yeah. And he said he went back and it was Sunday or something like that. And a coaching friend of his called him up and he said, how you doing? He's like, obviously not great kind of thing. And then he says, well, how's the team doing? He goes, well, I don't know. They all called a players only meeting and they hit the weight room. And the guy's like, congratulations, you just won. And he's like, what do you mean? And he goes, you've got culture building itself. You've done what you needed to bring in the right players to build upon an experience that they just had and try and right that ship. And obviously that could have kind of happened again this year with those 2 losses to ranked teams. Not that anybody expected them to win, but it's a rallying point and a rallying cry for them to get it together and succeed. And like you said, I'm thinking those kids really are truly playing for him too, because he, like you said, he believes in his word when he tells it to you. He looked right at me in the face the whole time he gave me an answer. One of the only guys who doesn't look all the way around the room, when he's giving you his answer. So definitely know and understand where you're coming from for that. So, man, Marv, you got any questions left for Sam here?
No, I mean, he pretty much covered it. Me watching the game, if you were to have a game where there's only 1 total turnover and almost 900 yards of total offense, you would expect the score to be significantly higher than that. But kind of like Sam said, they just had trouble putting it in the end zone, both teams. And then when South Alabama scores towards the end, you're looking down and you're like, a minute 45 seconds, old cliche. Did they leave too much time on the clock? Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought like, well, maybe not, because no one's really been able to do anything with it, but just a bunch of dink and dunk passes, let them down the field, and game-winning field goal. So probably, as an Arkansas State, Sam, are you an Arkansas State fan or just kind of covering them?
Just kind of covering them. I'm an Arkansas fan. That's just the I guess the default setting when you're born here. It's just all right, Arkansas fan. But yeah, I've always tried to follow them. I try to follow all the in-state schools, but especially Arkansas State. I've had some friends and teachers go there over the years, so I like to follow them as much as I can. Yeah,
well, I'm sure that was exciting to be at, and like you said, I could see where they'd be nervous throughout the entire game, and they probably had to feel pretty good watching the ball go through the uprights at the end.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we'll take it.
Yeah, I'm sure. There was just kind of a big exhale from everybody in the press box when that field goal went through, because the biggest difference, I think there's so many differences between the pro level and the collegiate level. I think the kicking game is probably at the top of the list, because it's not to diminish the accomplishment of making a 34-yard field goal in the NFL. That's an incredible accomplishment for a human being to accomplish when you think about it. But in college, no matter how good your kicker is, you're going to be nervous unless it's an extra point or like inside 25 yards. There's always going to be those slight nerves of, okay, this guy is 19, 20, 21 years old. This guy can't gamble or drink yet, and we're going to send him out here to kick a field goal. So, good luck, buddy. But yeah, there was that exhale when that ball went through the uprights, and everybody's like, okay, hey, we won. And then Butch Jones mentioned it. They did a sky kick and a beautifully executed kick that went for a touchback at the end of the game. And a touchback is, again, something that we kind of take for granted, I think, now when we watch football games, especially at the pro level. But for a collegiate kicker, that's a really big deal. And that was a big deal because that negated any chance of a miraculous kickoff return touchdown. So Coach Jones, that was another thing. He really praised the kicking game. He said that was the difference in the football game. And it was.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Kicking game coming through for all those soccer fans out there. But Sam, man, we really appreciate the time. That was a great breakdown, and we are definitely going to have you back on when A-State goes up against ULM, the juggernaut ULM as they are now.
Juggernaut of the Warhawks, absolutely.
That could be a sneaky good game at the end of the season.
Hey, college game day to Jonesboro. Come on.
There you go. There you go.
I would get to meet Ben Herbstreit. My life would be complete. So, I was thinking about calling Jerry Scott, who's the SID there, and saying, hey, I got a 12-year-old German Shepherd. He can't run really anymore. Do you mind if I bring him up into the press box with me and just have him sit with me? Be my emotional support dog. I don't think I know him that well yet to do that. But if college game day comes, I can introduce my dog to Ben Herbstreit, and that'd be the goal, the ultimate dream. So.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, Sam, before you go, tell everybody where they can find you and read more of your stuff.
Yeah, so I write. I need a business card. That's on my agenda of things to make because I write for like 6 different people, and it's very confusing. Mostly, you can find me writing about cars that turn left in circles for 5 hours. I'm writing about that for Yardbarker and a variety of other people. Twitter is at Sam McGee Stubbs. That's Instagram and Facebook and all that too. Of course, college football dogs covering the Razorbacks, A-State, Harding, any team that has a footprint inside the natural state, I'm probably covering them. So you can find me there. And I host a NASCAR podcast too from time to time. I need to get back doing that. I haven't done an interview or anything like that in a while. So you can find me doing that. But thank you all for having me on. And it was fun. I want to do this again when they play ULM because, like you mentioned, I think that'll be a really, really good football game.
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely have you back on, Sam. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Sam.
Man, what a breakdown.
Yeah,
only we could be that detailed in every game.
No, that guy's he's good. He's got a voice for radio and podcast, and he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Oh yeah, there is no doubt about that. Okay, the game that everyone was watching. We've got Data Portal Video. That's quite the name. Data Portal Video says, "No, my Dukes," as they did go down. Anthony's got a little funny thing here. Troy didn't lose yesterday. So, that probably goes towards the caption of the show when I said, hey, how'd your team do yesterday to tune in, Sunbelt fans? But before we get into this, I'll just catch up on some comments. I didn't want to interrupt Sam with some of the ones that didn't have to do with the game we were talking about there. Tyler says it's a weird year for the Sunbelt. No one's really appearing as the dominant team, but there's several who are sitting on the edge with question marks, and that's true. He says, praise God, but the USA game is coming. Tony's got a comment about Southern Miss that we'll get to that. Anthony says, heal up, QB and center will be healthy for the battle of the belt. That is between Troy and South Alabama for those that don't know. And then TJ made a note. Georgia Southern student section is behind the away side, and it's very effective. Ask App State. Yeah, I can tell you, I've been there. It does get rowdy, and I've actually been to A-State too. And I went to I think it was a Wednesday night game back in like 2019. I think we were on the road there.
At Arkansas State?
Yeah, at Arkansas State. Just a random.
Is that when Jalen broke his ankle going into the end zone?
That's that game. Yep. And because it was a weekday game and A-State wasn't great that year, and App State was, but again, it was a weekday game, so it was probably hard for quite a few people to get to. We went like first row of the student section behind our own bench.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very easy to get down to. So when there are less people, go enjoy yourself. Get a little closer than usual. But, also want to see more packed houses.
I would love for you to ask TJ about his experience and Polson with that fan base of students behind you, because I know I've been to Statesboro once as an App fan and vowed that I would never return. But being right there and having those students on top of you, I can imagine it's got to be crappy.
Yeah, I would think so. Speaking of one that wasn't as well attended, unfortunately, because this was a great game build-up wise going in, and also a great game as it was playing out on the field, as ULM, the Warhawks of ULM, get by James Madison 21-19. What a game this one was, back and forth. I mean, JMU scores quick to start the game, so game over, right, Marv?
Yeah, I mean, based off the last couple of weeks, it's like, oh, here they go again.
Yep.
How many points will they score this week? And then I jumped up to a 10-0 lead, and then ULM just kind of took over for the middle part of the game, to be honest. And JMU scores late, failed 2-point conversion. But yeah, all signs pointed towards to go in the first quarter or after the first drive, and it just kind of stalled after that.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird for them. ULM even had a muff punt, right? And you're like, okay, well, JMU's going to score easily right here. Nope. They got a big hit on Barnett, caused him to kind of fumble it into the air as essentially like an interception more so than a fumble. I don't think it hit the ground. I feel like it popped up and they got it out of the air. But anyway, they returned that for a touchdown to really get themselves going in the right direction. And
it was like before halftime, right?
It was a little before halftime because JMU did come down and then kick a field goal to make it 14-13.
81-yard fumble return. There was a minute and 30 seconds left on the clock to halftime before that.
A rough play. I mean, there's another play in this game that looked like it was going to go even further in ULM's favor as they scored a touchdown that was called back on a pick play, touchdown to Wells. Armenta, I keep saying Armada. Armenta threw that one. I honestly think at different levels of football, that might not even be called a pick play. I mean, like he definitely was trying to pick the wide receiver, and not the wide receiver. He is the wide receiver, but he was trying to pick the DB. But he does kind of like make a move to get out of the way, but you could tell he wasn't trying real hard. But it was enough of like a movement to kind of just slow him up instead of really hit him that I could have seen people not throw the flag on that, honestly. But they did, and so they get called back, and this game remains very, very close. I mean, JMU had the ball back one more time to kind of have a shot. It wasn't a great one, but they could have kind of run the length of the field almost to, field goal wins the game if they're in range by the end. But yeah, I would say Armenta looks like the guy. I don't think Booty was ever going to be that guy, at least from what I had seen earlier. And now it's pretty clear that he's not going to be the guy going forward. You get this kind of win. I don't see any way you go back to Booty with what Aiden's been doing on the field. I mean, his stats aren't going to blow you away as far as 17 for
they've
30.
been very pedestrian at quarterback all season, no matter who's in.
Yes, I agree with that. But I mean, he's able to get it done he went for 6 yards total, so that's not going to, be all that impressive. But JMU's defense was pressuring and took him down, so he had more positive yards than that, at certain times. But obviously, dropped back down a little bit. That defensive front, Hardy was really impressive to me. 82 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, I felt like they just. Apparently, he was a big target for Coach Vincent coming in. Like he was like the number one target coming in. He wanted to bring him in, and now we can see why. Ben James saying, "What's up?" TJ saying, "Is JMU frauds or is ULM that good?" I feel is the question of this game. I'm leaning towards frauds, but I'm a hater. So,
well, I appreciate your honesty. I literally thought that exact same thing. I don't think JMU's a fraud. I think they didn't play their best game, and ULM. I mean, maybe they're a heck of a lot better than what everybody thinks. I don't know. They're 4-1. I don't think anyone really expected much out of them. Going in, obviously this is the surprise game of the week in the Sun Belt, in my opinion. I don't know what the line was on the game. I'm trying to find that. It had to have been high, but
I would have thought. I want to say it was 17 points or something. It was a lot.
That seems like it would have been right. Let's see if I can find it. 16.5, yeah, with an over-under of 47.5. And when I saw the over-under, I was like, oh, man, I'm definitely going to take that. Not a good play this week. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think JMU's a fraud. I also don't know if ULM's that good. Maybe they just, everybody gets a game occasionally at home. I don't know. That's why there's more games on the schedule, and we get to figure it out as we go.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a little bit of both here. I mean, to be fair to James Madison, as good as their past 2 games before this one were, let's not forget how the season started against Charlotte and Gardner-Webb.
Yeah.
You take in the whole picture here, you see why James Madison's not getting too many votes in the others receiving votes category. They were, but they're probably not getting any now. No. But, they were getting some, but they weren't getting a ton because the body of work wasn't there, right? I mean, yeah, you've been great these last 2 weeks, and you could keep this rolling, but you've got to prove it. And then they didn't. And like you said, I think it was a little bit of JMU being off a little bit. And part of them being off was all full credit to ULM and what they've been able to do, especially defensively this year. The defense has never been the question for ULM this year. Been very, very good at getting it done. And obviously a really big point to them, but they will not continue to keep winning games by only scoring 21 points in the Sun Belt. So that part will have to continue to improve and evolve. I think this quarterback situation is sorted itself out now. Yeah. You've got a number one running back. You probably need a wide receiver like singularly to be able to step up more consistently, because I don't think that's been great yet either. So if they can kind of get a couple of those things to shape up a little bit better on the offensive side, the defense is going to be there, and it's going to keep them in just about every game. It'll be interesting. I don't know how close they are to having Texas State come around, but that one could be good.
It could be. I mean, that's, like I said, could be a surprise game. ULM is, in my opinion, is kind of outproduced everything at the moment. They're playing very, very good. Just want to see if they can keep it up. I think another couple of weeks of playing really good football, you have to start saying, okay, they're for real. They can contend in the West.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Tyler Austin saying, I don't think JMU are frauds, but they aren't as good as they thought. Asked them a week ago, and they were in the CFP. Yeah, I mean, even after the UNC game, it was like, okay, that was awesome for you guys. You still allowed 50 points.
Yeah,
okay? You can't forget that aspect. You still allowed 50 points, and UNC hasn't been great. I mean, they were undefeated coming in. I understand that, but historically, UNC is not a great, amazing football team or program.
They're
lost this weekend. Yeah. And Dominic saying, someone once said, that is why they play the game and never know what will happen. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before the season started, everyone's hammering James Madison in this game. And as the weeks progressed, you start to see it shape up a little differently. But you saw, like you said, 16 and a half points. People thought this game would be over rather quickly. And that is not the case. So, yeah, full credit. Warhawks, man, those uniforms are awesome. The all blacks with the white helmet that they've got new for this year. Sharp looking. I want one. If anyone from ULM wants to send me one, I'll wear it, whatever. Yeah, I'll wear it on the show, man. I'll put it on, right? I'll put it on. One last game to wrap things up here before we take a look at the standings, because now that we've got a full week of conference in, everyone's played a conference game at this point. We're going to start showing you the standings every week so we can take a look at that. Louisiana gets by. I mean, it wasn't really close, but it was closer than I thought it might be. 23-13 over Southern Miss in this one. I'll just go ahead and say this. Woolridge may be the most underrated quarterback in this conference. I don't know how much of this one you said you got to see, maybe at least the end, but
I watched the wrong half of football, because all the first half of football. But listen, Louisiana's good. Their game against Tulane told me a lot about them, even though they lost. Mm-hmm. I would have thought they would have taken care of business a little bit better than what the final score is going to show. But hey, a win's a win. Doesn't matter. You're on the road in conference. You win by 10. What else could he ask for?
Yeah, I think, Southern Miss was really looking to get back on track with this game and thought that they could do it. They've had, I think, historically some success against the Cajuns, but probably not here recently with how Southern Miss's program has been looking. Rodemaker, I mean, he didn't look great, goes for only 140, no touchdowns, no interceptions, so didn't take, he did have a lost fumble. He fumbled 3 times, actually. They only lost one. So
they only put up 177 yards of total offense. Now, in their defense, they only had the ball for 18 minutes and 25 seconds, which is
that's crazy, right?
Crazy clock control by the Cajuns. But you can't put up 177 yards and expect to win a football game ever.
No, not at all. I had a note here that Southern Miss did pull off a fake punt, a beautiful fake punt. It wasn't a pass. Just had the punter back there. The Cajuns had no idea it was coming. They were all retreating, and this guy ran up easy for the first down. But I guess, I don't know. Even they were questioning it a little bit on the broadcast. He got him a little wide, in the block, or the hold as they called it, I believe. And so that's why they saw it coming. And the one thing I didn't agree with that the commentator was talking about is like, well, I mean, you got to question how much that really affected the play. I'm like, well, I mean, you have no idea. He's holding him. So I don't know if, I think his point was that guy was running really fast and he was a little bit wider. And so he would have had to take an angle to cut that. I could kind of understand it. And, those ESPN Plus guys are typically a little bit of a homer. So you can see why they say that. But it was game-changing because that put them well over the 50 after that play. They would have still been driving with the ball in their hands at that point. I think it was still the same as the halftime score, I believe. I think it was still 17-13. If they go down and at least add a field goal, maybe get a touchdown, I mean, that is a game-changing penalty right there to take because after the penalty, of course, Southern Miss just punted the ball away. Yeah. So that was just something that really stood out to me specifically in this one. But like I said, I watched Woolridge throwing the ball and just taking care of the ball, and he doesn't blow you away stat-wise. I mean, I think that's why you're going to see stuff. He was accurate, 22 of 30, 222 and a touchdown, but his QBR only 66.2 because, not getting in the end zone enough, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I'm still trying to figure out what the formula is for QBR. I don't always agree with it.
Yeah, and he gets negative yardage overall because of the sacks and tackles for loss. So, he's not a rusher. So, but I like his game. I like the way he throws the ball. Well, a lot of his reads are really good. So that's why I'm saying, watching back on that one, I really think people should be keeping an eye on him, possibly even for the next level. I'm not quite sure if he's NFL talent, but I mean, he's one I'd have on a short list for the Sun Belt for sure. So, and this one, Tyler Austin saying the Cajuns are my Sun Belt dark horse. Watch out. Well, what's funny is TJ had them as I think he had them winning the West before the season started. He may have had Texas State with the Cajuns second, but either way, I can tell you that TJ Corman definitely had them as a top favorite in the West for sure before the season started. I wasn't quite so high, but I think I had them third. I don't know. Did you have them anywhere specific in your mind coming into the season, Marv?
I think I would have had them second or third. I mean, obviously in the West, I would have put Texas State first.
Yeah, I did too.
Had no clue that the ULM was going to be as good as they were. But yeah, I mean, I was just looking. They're a 10.5-point favorite over App this weekend. So
not surprising. I'd go more honestly with them playing at home, but
yeah. So
we'll see.
So you're saying to give the points?
I am. I would. I mean, I've been more impressed with them. They played Tulane tough, which Tulane is a very good team, and they could have won that game without a little bit of penalty turnover thing at the very end.
Sixes in that game, right?
What was that?
Didn't they throw 2 pick sixes in that game?
I think so, yeah. And so that's tough to swallow. But then they go in there and beat Wake Forest. That's a tough play. I mean, Wake just beat NC State, who hasn't been great, but it's not an easy victory either. So this Cajun team, it's like Tyler just said, watch out because they're going to be good. I got to work on this graphic. I'm noticing my lines are a little off when I see it, now on some things. But here is a look at the standings. This is the East. This is the West. As we know in football, the East versus the West for the championship. There are divisions. There are not divisions in basketball, as I'm researching coming up, obviously, and there aren't in baseball either. So football, we're going to stick to the divisions. The only divisions left in all of Division 1A FBS college football. So you are quite literally looking at the 2 best divisions in college football. No one can debate you. So you tell them that when you're having your Sun Belt conversations around the water cooler.
I did not realize it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Left.
Yep, that's it. We are the only ones left, so no one can debate us. It's pretty cool. All right, so I made this comment on the graphic that I shared earlier today on the social medias. Look at the bottom of these standings. App State 0-2, Troy 0-2. Yep. I'm not saying we would have said Troy and App would have been 2-0 to start the year. I would not have put Troy at 2-0 probably. I probably would have put App before the season, honestly. But at least Troy I knew was going to have some struggles. But who would have predicted the 2 of them would have combined for 0 conference wins after 4 conference games? That wouldn't have been me. Never would have been me.
No, never would have. I mean, like you said, you kind of would have expected a little bit more from Troy just based off of everything that they lost. But what App had coming back, you would have thought that they'd be hovering around the top. But yeah, that's how the modern era of college football goes. You never know. Just because you lose a lot of people, maybe you bring in a lot of good people, and just because you have a lot of returners, maybe they're not as good as the people that other folks are bringing in. So, strange world.
Yeah, very much strange. And so far, it's, there's a lot of ties across the board right here. You got 3 teams in the East are 1-0. 3 teams in the East are also 0-1. In the West, we've got 3 teams at 1-0. And then that's it, actually. That's kind of a weird thing. 3 teams with 1-0 records. Everybody else in the West has different records than that. So that one's a little bit clear. But yeah, I mean, some things got to sort themselves out. You see Texas State down there, technically listed at 4th right now, but really tied for 2nd in conference games as far as that is concerned. And again, ULM up there at the top, 2-0, the only 2-0 team in the entire conference. ULM, again, just like the thing we said with App State and Troy, never would have predicted that ULM would have the best record in conference play this far into the season. So
they're home this weekend against a struggling Southern Miss team. So do they go to 5-1 and 3-0 in conference?
Yeah, and a little fun fact there, Tony Thomas shared with us earlier that I wanted to go back to. Southern Miss has converted just 3 third downs in 28 attempts over the last 3 games. Yikes.
So they're like 12% third down conversion percentage. That's ouch.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, that offense has been pretty bad consistently all season, and not what I would have expected with Rodemaker coming over from Florida State. But let's say this, as much as this is a slap in the face in some regards, like, is it now obvious why Florida State wasn't chosen for the CFP with Rodemaker at the quarterback position? Like,
yeah.
I hate to say it, but like it's now being proved because he's moved over to a team and a conference that people will say is not as good and whatever, but he's not getting it done on the field over here either. It's like, like you hate to put that on a kid, but proof is now kind of in the pudding already at that point. So, rough. But yeah, okay. We just covered James Madison's now 0-1 in the conference. Georgia State 0-1, but played Georgia Southern decent. I mean, I wasn't a last second win or anything like that, but I thought they were competitive in that game for the most part.
Hey, by transient properties, Georgia State could beat Alabama. So,
there you go. Yeah. What did we say? What did it saw it earlier today? Georgia Southern beat Georgia State, who beat Vandy, who beat Alabama, and Alabama beat Georgia. You could keep going with this all the way around, but at some point, it doesn't make sense how Georgia Southern then lost to Ole Miss, because I think Ole Miss has played. Is that how it worked? Maybe not. I don't think Ole Miss has played. I forget how it was working out. Somehow, like, ODU's played South Carolina. Southern Miss also just now played South Carolina. Anyway, the degrees of separation in college football, it's like we said just a little bit ago. This is why you play the games. You never know what's going to happen week in, week out. And I was talking to Seth earlier on the phone today. It's like it's so much more about schemes and matchups than it is about this team's 4-0 and this team's 1-3 coming in. Like that, those things don't matter as much as the general public believes when they're looking at, this is why so many people lose bets, right? When they put stuff on and they're not looking deep enough. Records don't tell you everything. Perfect example.
Vegas doesn't want you to know that.
Yeah, that's true. Whoops, we just spoiled it. But it's everyone trying to make the quick buck. They don't want to put the research in to see all these things. But it is what it is. Coastal Carolina sitting there at the top of the East, but they also have a 4-1 overall record. So yeah, I mean, a lot of ties, obviously, like we said, got to work themselves out, but this is the picture as we see it right now. I think I have one more slide. And again, that's the typical kind of outlook, trajectory, fan base, thought wise. We've got a lot of teams up there looking pretty good, looking pretty happy. Marv, take a look at that. Let me see what you think. I got Georgia Southern, ULM, Cajuns, Coastal, all sunny roses. Everyone's pretty happy with how things are running or expected to go from here. In the partly cloudy, you've got Georgia State, Arkansas State, Texas State, James Madison, and Marshall. In the kind of cloudy outlook, I guess, South Alabama's got some promise, but, with that last loss, they're kind of sitting there maybe. And then not looking so hot is App State, Troy, ODU, and Southern Miss. So where did I go wrong here?
I cannot disagree with anything that you put here. I'm sure South Alabama just wishes they could play App State every week. They look phenomenal. But no, over on the left-hand side, those fan bases have to be pretty happy. Maybe interchange Georgia Southern and Arkansas State. But I think other than that, it's pretty accurate. And once again, this is going to be a week-by-week thing, right? You could be in the sunny spot, and then you lose a game, and now you're cloudy because, recency bias. We just lost a game.
Yeah.
Fans are short for fanatics. We get up and down. But I will not argue with anything that you have here this week.
Yeah, I believe, I'd have to fact check myself. I think Georgia State was actually in the kind of cloudy look after the loss to Georgia Southern, and they actually moved up this week without playing a game simply because the team that they beat has now beaten number one, right? So they beat Vanderbilt. Yeah. Vanderbilt goes and beat number one. I'm thinking Georgia State fans are loving life right now because they're like, dude, the aspects of what we could do or what we could be is really pretty good. So that's why I kind of moved them up even on a bye week like that. And Georgia Southern kind of looking the same way because they're going to look at that victory over Georgia State and kind of see that transitive property as well. Yeah. And think, hey, look, and the only other loss that they've suffered, besides Ole Miss. So they've got the Ole Miss loss, which just puts up a lot of points, and the Boise State loss, which both of those teams are really pretty good. I mean, I know Ole Miss has had their struggles here within the last week, but still a really, really good football team that's going to be expected to win a lot more games than they lose. All right, any extra points to discuss here, Marv? Anything you want to cover before we head out?
No, just looking forward to, the best matchup for the Sun Belt this week is on a Thursday night, which is pretty cool. Good and get that out of the way. I think whoever wins that game between Coastal and James Madison kind of separates themselves as the top for the East for the moment. Still a lot of football to be played, but man, just glad that we're in conference. I don't think anybody's got a bye week next week, so all teams are playing. So should kind of help make that weather forecast picture a little bit more clear.
Yes, it should, man. Well, as always, a great time on the show tonight. Thanks to Sam for stopping by and being a part of it. By the way, he's only in high school, guys. So if you want to do this for a living, start early when you don't have a full-time job because it could be a lot easier to kind of continue with it. Now, he puts in a ton of work. Like he said, he was up till 1:30 or whatever. I'll be up till about that time tonight working on these basketball previews and going through everything. But, yeah, tune in, guys. We will have the preview show for you Wednesday. We've got a digital basketball magazine coming out that these previews will be part of. This is not just a production for me. This is bigger than myself, and so it'll be included with the ACC, all the big conferences for basketball. The Sun Belt will have representation within this digital magazine, and we're happy to help bring it to you. So once again, thank you to our sponsors. Thanks to Marv. Thanks to Sam. Thanks to College Football Dogs for letting us do this for you guys. And we will see you guys later this week.
See you guys.
Sunbelt Syndicate.